Hi, it's Casey Cover, and I'm here with Nathan Childs, and he's going to talk to us for SATS Full Circle, our conference, and he's going to share some of his experiences with training. He also worked helping humans for a significant time, um, emotions, and various techniques and scientific information. So Nathan, what do you have for us today? Welcome.
Hey Casey, thanks for having me. I got a whole bunch of stuff today, so I got to keep it on point here. That's where you're going to help me. Yeah, I like to talk. So first and foremost, thanks for having me. I just want to talk about it's kind of coming up a lot more in training and dog care. It's the emotional component. And what you usually hear is, helping the dog feel safe and giving the dog a choice. Those are the two big things that we hear talked about currently. And I guess the best way I look at it and the information I'm getting now and learning about is there's a lot more to it. And if we focus on the emotional needs of the dog, and even more so initially of the owner, because they're probably frustrated and just as upset and not thrilled with their dog as much as the dog is feeling the same way about the owner. So helping bridge that and caring for both the owner and the dog is a big part of it. So I tend to focus more on the science side of things and understand what's happening in the brain, and that helps me translate that to now helping a dog and the owner. I've took SATS a few years ago. That's how I first met you, and I appreciated that. Perception modification changed my world. I was already doing relaxation and kind of some hands-on stuff with the dogs, but adding that perception modification, if you're not familiar with that, learn about it. It's very powerful stuff, and I kudos to Casey for helping develop that and come up with most of the protocols. And that focuses mostly on empowering the dog. I'm teaching the dog how to deal with stress, how to deal with it themselves, how to get through it. I'm there to help them. Whereas the emotional component comes at a very basic level. We'll call it the foundation of behavior. So just like a house or anything that has a foundation, if that foundation is solid, everything you build upon it can withstand an earthquake, basic things. Whereas if the foundation isn't very solid, it can fall apart just based on it not being built very well without much stress. So that's where we come in. We are basically teaching the owners and the dogs how to deal with stress. And stress gets a bad rap. I'm stressed out, or that's stressful. But we both know that stress is a good thing sometimes. It's how we learn and grow and connect with each other. The hardest thing is when you are stressed out and no one is there to help you. And that's the way I see a lot of dogs and owners. They can't communicate, they can't get their basic needs met. So just for example, for training, the first thing I focus on is basic needs, and it all comes back to this: water. I think we nowadays take water for granted, especially in the more developed parts of the world. But in a lot of areas, water is a very scarce resource, or if there is water, it's not drinkable. So having water available for a dog during initial training makes a world of difference. And I'm not talking it's there, and if the dog wants, he can go get it. Making an integral part of your care circle and support. If you can meet those basic needs and then move on to more needs, higher level needs, real world things, you can always come back to the water. It's just like taking a deep breath. It brings you back down, it centers you.
So do you mean you actually have water available there for the animals and you invite them to go take a break and drink? Okay.
Yep. And the most important part, because science has told us that when a dog starts drinking or eating, it's actually a stressful event because they have to be vulnerable and trust that they're safe enough to do that. Same thing with going to the bathroom sometimes. So you being there and looking out for them and protecting them, that adds a humongous amount of emotional value to you. Same thing with being able to comfort and support them, to be there when they're having a tough time and having stress. That's how you build confidence and resiliency and then emotional security. So they're not always testing you and making sure you're there for them, which is what a lot of dogs do. They will tell, are you there? Can I get you? Will you connect with me if I need you? And if we're not there, that's insecure or absent attachment. That's where we get a lot of problem behaviors.
Yeah.
So having that secure attachment and SATS, that's the first thing you do. I am here. I'm going to help you. I'm providing the support you need in the best way that I can. And then we move on from there. Your system is very, very, very precise, and you do it, and everything you do is for a reason, and that's why it works. Same thing with the emotions. The difference being you develop this externally through your experience. The emotional systems are already there pre-wired. We don't have to change anything other than tapping into that on both sides. And it does go both ways. When you provide care for another being, a dog, that releases oxytocin, endorphins, things that help you feel better as a person. And then once you're both feeling good, that's where you enter things like play. Play is a very powerful arena to work through things. It's safe. We can be a little more testing. We can push boundaries and limits on things, but we know the other person is going to respect that and reciprocate to find that balance. And we talked earlier about that dance where the dogs are vibing and playing, and it's almost like a dance as opposed to that more abrupt, aggressive energy that you see in a lot of dogs that are just not socially balanced or emotionally balanced. And that's
Yeah,
where we
and here I just want to point out to people, Nathan literally is referring to dance, that the fact that animals enjoy dance also, and you see them use it, moving together in tandem to kind of like, get
life,
into sync with it. Yeah, play.
yeah,
Is
life,
that right?
play,
That's right.
and to the point where I have a playlist of songs me and my dog like. I mean, it comes on, it's got a good beat to it. I look at him, he looks at me, we start moving around. And that's where you can incorporate obedience things, if you want, targeting, cues, getting your
He'll
dog to
work to
follow along.
music.
Yeah, I mean, dances with woofs. I mean, that's a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's fun. I mean, I've seen some really good routines. I would never get that intricate, but just vibing and moving around with your dog. That's how I start walking skills. Let's just walk around, cut back and forth, a little dance routine. You come to me, I come to you, I walk around you, I call you to me. I mean, it's fun. It's play. Your brain lights up like a Christmas tree when play is involved. And that is why it is so powerful for both learning and growing, especially for rehabilitation. If you can get a dog to have that connection with you, to feel like you are a trusted caregiver, that's the most important part. That takes you back to the water, food to a certain degree, but I try not to make food a big issue. It's just there, here you go. I'm providing it, it's safe, you can eat it. And then it grows from there. That is your solid foundation. And the more I learn about it, there's a lot of things if you're looking out for, and you can catch at the first sign of the need, or even anticipate your dog's need, like, hey, let's take a break and get some water. And they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. Thanks for reminding me. Or, hey, do you need to take a break? Or, hey, did you want to move away from this scary thing instead of trying to bark at it and scare it away?
Teaching the animal to self-regulate, because
Yes, yes.
Otherwise they may get so distracted by the playing opportunity or whatever they're doing that they actually forget until they're a little bit frantic for water. You see it with kids, they'll
Yep,
get overly tired and they don't want to sleep,
yep. And
and they need
part
to
of,
take a nap right then.
yep, and that's the de-stress or the recovery phase. I mean, play does not need to go on for a long time. I've had it be 1 to 3 minutes. I played with a dog for 20 seconds. They stop and needed a break. But by repeating that cycle, that's kind of what you're doing with your SATs. You're introducing play. I mean, touch and manipulating a dog's body, that's a very mild form of play. I'm playing with your hair. I mean, if you want to get, I don't know if you want to add this out, but foreplay, I mean, that's touching each other's bodies, and it leads to a connection. And, depending on how deep into a
Yeah,
relationship
we're
you
used to
are.
thinking of that in terms of romance, but in reality,
Right.
it's in every aspect. Can I
And
ask you some specific questions about your explorations in science and behavior and how it relates to your knowledge of SATS?
sure, that'd be great.
So I know that what we're talking about you're opening a window for us into effective dog behavior, which is based on the work of Jaak Panksepp. Can
Yep.
you give people, a lot of people may not have heard of it, or they may not understand, what is the basic thing that's
It's
driving ADB?
it is the emotion that affects the behavior. The emotion comes first. It's been identified very clearly as a primary processing. It uses our old brain, the most basic part that kept us alive and surviving for million, I don't know how many years, whatever you're going with these days.
Yeah, right.
But we had that part of our brain first. The neocortex literally means the new brain. That's where we do a lot of our thinking and reasoning, and that part in the dog is not very well developed. They are emotional thinkers. The emotion drives everything else they do. So once you learn to tap into that, you can see a lot of very predictable patterns. As far as the stress, de-stress cycle, just like us, we can only deal with stress in life for so much. We have to take a break. Usually we go to the bathroom, get a drink. And that's the same thing that dogs do. We play for a little bit, we stop, we take a break, we go, we sniff, we pee. That's de-stressing. And as you repeat that cycle, you can tolerate more and more stress before you have to take a break or it's too much for you. Once you get too much stress, that's distress, that's uncomfortable. That's where you start kind of breaking down.
So
So
don't you guys talk about, don't you guys, in ADB, you have 7 main emotions, right?
yep, the primary emotional systems, those were identified by Jaak Panksepp. I don't even know the date. I think it was probably in the 60s or the 70s. Those are the seeking system. People talk about that. Oh, your seeking system is activated. The seeking system is always activated. It's just whether it's motivating you to seek comfort and rest and recovery, that's sleep or downtime, whether you need food, help, connection, interaction, and play. That's one of the biggest ones that oversees everything. Then you have the other ones, which are care. I'm taking care of another individual.
Right.
Panic grief, that goes closely with care, because panic grief is I need someone to help me, which is different than fear, which is I want to run away from things, which is also different than rage, which is I want things to go away from me. Then there's also play, which is the one we focus on, is care, play, and the seeking system. And then the last one is lust, which in dogs is not really as big of a thing because they're not allowed to act on it as
Right.
much. We train the heck out of that and we cut their stuff off. So it's a non-issue. Testosterone does still play a big role in both male and female dogs, with or without their stuff.
Yeah.
And actually it converts to estrogen, and the estrogen does a lot more in the brain and learning, but we'll get into that. We'll get into that another time. Yeah. Testosterone, basically the long and the short, too long didn't read. Testosterone makes it very rewarding to keep trying and to win. So if the dog gets a lot of reinforcement by winning and trying harder, that's very teenage behavior, if you're familiar with that.
That's great. So we've got these 7 things. And how do you apply that with ADB? Like, is there a 1-minute explanation of the process that you're going to apply when you go meet a dog that you're going to help?
Yeah, I mean, the obvious thing, like we said, is having their basic needs met. We have water, you are safe, I am here to help you. If that is not your dynamic yet as a trainer, you push that back to the owner, but they are teaching the dog that you are a trusted person, and very quickly the dog will open up to you, seek a connection with you, initiate play with you. And then whether they go back to the owners or you for care, it's really their option. Usually they'll go down the line. They'll always go back to their person, their primary caregiver. And if they are there and available for that connection, that could be running up to you, making eye contact with you, jumping on you. If they're not finding a connection, they will seek a connection and get it any way possible. And if they can't get it from you, they will get it from somewhere else. That, if you're aware of that, then the panic grief, when your dog is having a hard time, they are starting to get worked up, they don't know what to do. That's where high levels of dopamine in the seeking system cause a lot of activity. It also does the adrenaline, which gives you the energy. A lot of dogs will hit the wall with that though. They'll keep trying, pulling on the leash, jumping, barking, doing whatever. Then at a certain point, they realize that's not working. That's where the serotonin kicks in. That's where they will turn and look to you for help. They will also do a shake
They
off,
can
sniff.
cycle around these various things,
Others
but
overlap too, but they're all distinct systems in the brain. They are
and
circuits that they identified as separate systems.
and you listed a kind of a chronology, which I thought was really helpful. So you go in and you see fear, apprehension, whatever, or distress because they
Yep.
need something.
Yep.
So you give the care to provide relief from the distress. And then you're looking for signs that that animal's connecting, that until he connects with you and starts to see you as a
An
um,
ally.
yeah,
An
yeah,
alliance,
that
yes.
it's kind of premature to try to talk him into doing
Right.
things.
Well, and
Like,
that's where that synergistic alliance comes in. It's the perfect word for it. We're better than each of our individuals.
yeah,
We help each.
I see the consistency there too. So what's the divergence? How is ADB different?
ADB, I am helping the owner. I'm there, but I try to take as much of a backseat role as possible and help the owners and empower them to help the dog to empower themselves.
Mhm.
Whereas you guys take the dog without the owner, empower them and give them back to the owner. And I still am at a loss as to how the dog can do that without having to teach the owners how to do a lot of the stuff that we do. Because
I don't
that
blame you for that. I am too.
because
I
that's what
am
I
too.
struggled with SATS. I mean, I learned the perception of, but trying to teach your average pet owner how to do all that stuff and give them a week to work on it and then come back and they're like, well, he kind of laid down and we kind of, yeah, he relaxes. He relaxes. I'm like,
Yeah, not
so,
on request, and he doesn't
right.
maintain it when.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And a comment I'll make is that with ADB, with all these emotions, with all the scientific information about it, you're fluent with that. And with a lot of our colleagues, they're not going to be. And so they're going to feel uncomfortable, overwhelmed when they start to hear all this information.
Yep.
But just stick with it, folks. And Nathan is a great resource for all of us because he is fluent and he can come back and connect us and help us do that. Similarly with SATS, if you stick to it and you become fluent, the things that were difficult become easy and second nature. And none of it do we believe until we actually see it for ourselves. I can tell you stuff day in and day out, but if you're not seeing it reflected in your immediate experience with animals, you will always doubt it, as you should. But
Yep.
it's just kind of a thing to remind us to stay on the game. When you find a really good, promising technique, I myself will be learning more about ADB because even if I choose not to approach dog training primarily through the emotions are still there. You know, I might be able to do something a different way and support the emotions, but as you're saying, Nathan, the most important emotions to support initially could be the owners. If you
Yep.
don't understand about these emotions and you can't talk to the owners, you may not get a chance to help them further because they're not finding what they need, at
Yep.
least on an immediate basis.
And a lot of owners try to go way too fast. You know, you have to take it back to the basics. Works as fast as the dog is ready. You know, if they need a break every 2 minutes, then it's 5 minutes, then it's 10 minutes, then it's 20 minutes, then they're good for most of the day. That's your separation distress, which is different than separation anxiety, but it's still tied to that connection that they, you know, perceive as being severed and that you're not there when they need you versus teaching them they can be okay for a while.
Interesting. And I find that too. So we're coming to the end of our time. What
Awesome.
would you like to leave us with?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, it always goes back, if you remember from your psychology, if you took it, the hierarchy of needs, it's very simple. You have to take care of your basic needs. You need water, food, shelter, warmth. Then you can start worrying about what you want to do, hobbies, sports, going to college and thinking about how to change the world. That's what we call self-actualization. When all your needs are met, you can be the true person you're supposed to be because you don't have to worry about all that stuff. And that's what we're trying to do for our dog. And what I found is when you get that connection and that emotional security on both sides, you can do a lot more with your dog. All the behavioral concerns tend to minimize. I mean, they're still going to be your dog and have a personality, but that's what you want. Honestly, you don't want your dog to be a robot and no and stay and sit and all that command and compulsion based stuff. So
Yeah, outstanding. So folks, if you're interested in understanding the neurophysiology of all of us, animals, dogs, people, Jaak Panksepp's work is a rich playground to go study. Effective dog behavior is a place where you can get guidance to do exactly that. And with SATS, we're rather than supporting the emotions directly, which we also try to do, but our focus is on empowering the dog to support his own emotions and to be independent of the owner. But they start out very dependent. And as Nathan suggests, it's a process. And so if you're seeing the dog break down someplace, you can look at the support of the emotions to give you guidance in how to get him to the point where he can go longer and longer on his own. Is that fair to say?
the solid foundation can weather the storm. Yes.
Outstanding. Thank you so much for
No,
being with us.
thank you, Casey.
I'll see you next time.
All right. Thanks.